Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan, sort of finally on to our normal schedule now. We have a podcast dropping on Wednesday morning. It's our film review podcast. It's just quite a short turnaround since Tuesday morning is when our last podcast came out. Of course, it was our post-game show with Trey Thomas from late Monday night as the Eagles scored themselves a really nice 24-7 win. What we will do, Adam and I, will go through exactly what went right, which is mostly everything for the Eagles on both offense and defense. We'll throw in a little few things that need to get better, and there's not really a whole lot unless you're nitpicking, but there are a couple of things that stuck out when we talked to our sources, and we'll get through that. And maybe just a little quick glance ahead with the Washington and Commanders up on deck and Carson Wentz. I want to thank everybody, and we mean this from the bottom of our heart. We were very fortunate when we thought our week 1 pregame show was our most watched pregame show ever. And then week 2 came along, Adam, and that even blew week 1 away from a visibility and audience standpoint. And same thing with the post-game show that we did with Trey Thomas. So we're both really humbled and very excited and appreciative of the audiences we've been getting. And we're really glad that everybody's really excited about what's going on this year with the Eagles.
Yeah, look, it as you just said, it does help that the team is good, one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
You'd asked me on it was Tuesday night, what was the feeling around the league on this team, and I put them at number 3 right now. I'm just going down the middle based on where every team is. So yeah, you all should be excited.
Mm-hmm.
They're very well coached. We'll get into that. It's another part of this show today. We want to give a shout out to some of the schemes and some things that they did, which were different. Stuff that they did not show anything week 1. I mean, it's really amazing how one week to the next, how things are different. I mean, yeah, you run your philosophy, but the way they did it, they got the plays was completely different. It was cool. Some of the stuff was very different. So that was good. And yeah, we got a lot going on with our company here. With Trey Thomas did a phenomenal job filling in for Greg Cosell, who'll be back with us this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
For a pregame show from Rivers Casino from 10 a.m. to 12 p. with you and I, Cosell and Avant. Trey and Jason were great because they've not worked together for us, right? Was this the first time?
No, I think that's the first time Trey and Jay have been on the set with us for the pregame show. So that was really cool.
Some people thought they had heat. I'm like, no, they don't necessarily agree on everything. It's okay.
Oh man, people may forget that we had Jamal Jackson and Trey, who are really good friends and of course former line mates for the Andy Reid Eagles, and they went at it one show that we did for the pregame show, totally, completely arguing over a scheme and formation. It was kind of funny to sit back and watch, but of course there was all love.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then right after the game, should be around 4:15. You and I and Trey do our post-game show. Trey's on every post-game show with us.
Yep.
And then, but we got a couple cool things coming tonight.
Yeah. So Wednesday night tonight, as we've talked about our Patreon channel, we're trying to give everybody great reasons to subscribe to our Patreon channel, which will give you bonus exclusive content. All right, we're doing 2 extra shows a month for our Patreon subscribers, the first of which will be tonight, Wednesday night, 9 o'clock p.m. It's a live Ask ITB Zoom session with Adam and I, where we'll let you into our Zoom channel. You ask us all the questions you want, be it NFL related, Eagles related, and maybe, what Adam likes to do on a Friday night, right?
Yeah.
Fantasy football related, all that stuff.
What? I know your plans for Friday night. Yeah, or mine. But
exactly. Then, we're an open book, right?
Yeah. As a warm up for that, I'm doing my chats every Wednesday from 8 to 8:30 Eastern.
On Discord, right?
Yeah, on our Discord channel
mm-hmm.
for all Patreon subscribers. And it's great. We had a nice turnout. Probably like a third of our subscriber base already for that showed up.
Yep.
And we'll probably get more. And again, we're doing that every Wednesday until the Eagle season is over, and hopefully for Eagle fans that they're not done until mid-February.
All right, we'll see. And of course, Q&A was back last week with their debut show for this 2022 season. Went great. People loved it. People happy to see them back. And of course, they're on the platform again today, Wednesday, with their second edition of this 2022 season. So you got to make sure you tune in and check it out on all of our podcast and YouTube platforms. The Q&A show with Quentin Michael and Jason Avant. And by the way, for our Patreon, if I didn't give it away, if it's patreon.com/inside the birds, if you want to become a subscriber, patreon.com youtube.com/inside the birds. And we're going to keep adding to that platform and giving our subscribers more bonus content, more perks, more prizes, autographed give merchandise and some tickets to see our pregame show in live and in person, among other things. So really expect to be very active on that. And again, the private chats that we're doing on Discord as well. So let's move toward the actual, nuts and bolts of what went on. There were a couple of transactions. Adam, you want to go through some of the important ones here?
Well, they only actually, not that any of them were earth-shattering. In fact, they still have a spot on their 53 as we talk here early Wednesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people are up in arms over it. Like, they don't understand why they'd open it up. I kind of hear you, but they're monitoring it. They're working players out. They haven't signed anyone. I know some people, when we were hosting a show on Tuesday night, people want like another tight end in there. They have enough, but the worry is what happens if Goddard gets hurt. Well, you're not going to make it up. You're not going to find anyone out there who's even close to Goddard. We'll get into his tape as well on this show.
Mm-hmm.
What they did is they waived Jared Maiden, who was going to be a special teamer for them. He got hurt in training camp. They waived him off IR with the injury settlement, so he didn't count against the roster anyway because he was on IR. But see, that's the other thing with safety. They could really use a developmental guy on Blankenship's not dressing yet, which is. I'm slightly surprised that
not really
for special teams, but that's where that's at. But that was it so far.
Well, funny, this is a film review show. I recall seeing one snap, and maybe there was more, but I caught it because it's hard. You don't always see the 22 on the TV copy. But Kavon Wallace got in there in like some kind of 3 safety dime package that they played on a specific snap, and I sort of had to go to the old roster to be like, wait a minute, who is that guy? I forgot because we barely see him on the field.
42, right? Is he 40? Because Kaiser White's 43. This is so hard.
42.
Wasn't Sproles' number 43? Am I wrong about that? Wasn't he 43?
No, I think you're right. I think it was 43.
That's the thing I struggle with. I can't keep up with these crazy numbers. Reddick, who, oh my gosh, he was playing in pass coverage. No!
I know. By the way, the Dalvin Cook, that was an adjustment for me too, even watching the game, because he's wearing 4 and Madison's wearing 7. I don't know. I feel like a whole get off my lawn moment for me. Like, can we go back to wearing numbers that reflect the positions that we play, please?
It's really hard.
It is hard.
I used to have them as a kid growing up in this market. Like, for Flyer fans, I could go through one, starting with Freddie Perron, probably through like 29 and name like 30 years some of the players who were the numbers.
Yeah.
But now it's so confusing, and they don't match up with the way we learn positions.
Right. I just don't understand why you'd want to be a running back wearing the number 4, even when you're allowed to. Like, why 4? I mean, I guess everybody's got a special number, but you're a running back. Give me 34. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me like the classic running back number, 33, 20,
or the 20s or 30s, right? Or for the running backs, 20, 30s, or
if you were a fullback in the 40s,
right? 48, 49, right? Who's that guy? Yeah, they've had so many fullbacks over the years in the 40s. Exactly.
Yeah. So, all right. We'll get into the film review. Obviously, we introduced one of our new partners during the pregame show, Adam Mojo, and I think it's like I know it's been around, but this is interesting. A sort of new way of investing, sort of like a sports stock market, where if you're smart enough and you think that you know the players who are on the rise and maybe the players who are on the decline, right, you can kind of buy and sell stock in that player. It's really cool. And Mojo is allowing you to do that now. They've got an app where you use stats and things that happen in the player's career. It could even be in the off season that might influence whether his price is rising or falling, career long projections, things like that. Right. So you start to build a portfolio that you can buy and sell on your terms of players. It's like sort of combination fantasy, combination stock. I think it's pretty cool. It's a good concept.
It is, because if you're ahead of the game, if you buy early, let's say you bought TJ Edwards, right? Back in June. There's like no one knew. Like, this is part of what we'll talk about tonight or today with the show today, is not just what the tape looked like, but some of the things, because now we play 2 games to kind of see what everyone's roles are for the most part.
Right.
If you would have gotten him on Mojo, it's more of like a stock market game. You get in early and you see what he's doing and see how many minutes he's getting and what he's doing. Or you just get in on these players early. Like, here's another one. Jahan Dotson, the Eagles are going to play this Sunday.
Yes.
I mean, who knew? I mean, he scored in both games.
I did.
Wentz
I
and
drafted
he and
him.
Wentz have terrific chemistry.
Yep.
So no, people weren't sure for fantasy. No one knew he'd be this good this early.
Yeah, that's true. Now with Mojo, right? It's only skill position. It's quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers.
Oh, I see. My bad.
And
Okay.
no, that's okay. TJ Edwards was a good example of just a player who you would theoretically could invest in and watch it. Like if I were to pick an Eagle, right, and I'm trying to buy low so I can profit later down the road, I think a guy like Kenny Gainwell makes a lot of sense because we know that Miles Sanders most likely won't be back with the team next year, and Gainwell will be year 3, and they've tried to integrate him into the offense. He's not doing great right now, but again, that's why it's buy low and then watch as the share goes up next year when he gets more time, more opportunity, becomes a part of this offense, which is suddenly explosive. So if you want to get in on it, Mojo's available in New Jersey on an iOS, and just by downloading the app, you got a chance to win $10,000 in free shares of player stock. So the link will be in our description box for this show on YouTube and our podcast platforms. You can click on the link and get yourself a chance to win $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Of course, you got to be 21, and you also have to be located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. So obviously, if you have a gambling problem, you call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's talk.
You know what?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say real quick, we put a promo up during the game for this, for their app. The engagement that it got, wow, on Twitter, it was interesting. I didn't realize a lot of investing people are following us.
I think it's a great concept. It's really fun. Cool. It's fun. Yeah. It's fun. It's cool. It combines sports and your sort of your knowledge, stock market. If you're savvy, I think you can get a really good enjoyment out of something like this.
For sure.
All right, let's talk about the Eagles offense against the Vikings defense. The Eagles scoring 24 points. Had a chance to put a few more on the board, but had a field goal blocked. We'll get into that. But no doubt about it. We talked about this on our Tuesday night show on the Fanatic, which is normally Monday nights, but had to change to Tuesday, obviously, with the game being Monday. But there was a rhythm and a flow starting with the offensive line and quarterback and the play calling, a marriage there, Adam, that was something you haven't seen out of an Eagles offense in a really, really long time from start to finish. I thought it was pretty cool to see there everything kind of work together and fold together. And it really benefited Jalen Hurts, who did such a great job.
I would say this is what we call a coach's game. They clearly, and whoever their advanced people are, Max Gruden and his group, whatever information they gave them, what the Vikings offensive defense might look like. But I got to tell you, the coaches did a phenomenal job. I mean, they completely stymied. Although, I mean, 24 points, they should have scored over 40 easily. But the damn penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt bad for Eagle fans because they just absolutely abused the Vikings defense. Ed Donatel, who I have a lot of respect for, I don't know what hell he was thinking. He was one of the worst coach games got to be of his career. They got completely manhandled. The Eagles' offensive line was phenomenal. We'll get into them in a second, but I just didn't understand. Like, if you're going to play a 2-deep shell, what are you doing to take away when guys are running free over the middle, 15 yards inside the numbers? Okay, they're starting to do this stuff. Okay, where are the adjustments here? I mean, I expect this out of a veteran coach to see what they're trying to do to you. They're taking what you're giving them. Okay, where are the adjustments? And they didn't adjust. It was like in Gannon in the first week, okay, against the Lions. First drive, terrible. He adjusted off that. Then they had 3 and outs. He really adjusted well, got soft in the second half. But when he had it going on, it's because they adjusted. Their zone drops are better, very tight coverage. Didn't give Geoff a lot of room, made him hold on the football.
Right.
I can't remember, and based on the people we spoke with on Tuesday, I did not hear from one person, I don't think you did either, that said that Hurts had to go to 3rd, 4th progressions because they were covered. That's embarrassing for a staff like this. Look, the Eagles have a better roster. I knew that coming in. I knew it going out. No doubt, it's not even close. The coaching is far superior. It's just embarrassing how bad the Vikings defense was. And again, because of the damn stupid penalties, I say damn, I hate bad football. They're moving the football. Hurts was tremendous. We'll get into everything that happened with him. Just as an overview to start this discussion.
Yeah.
They had so much going on. They improved greatly from week 1 against Detroit, just on It's everything you said, the marriage between the run and pass game, just the flow of the play calls, starting with the speed offense, which we didn't know they were going to do. No one knew.
Right.
I got to give not only Nick Sirianni, obviously the OC Steichen credit. He was phenomenal. This is his best coach game. In fact, quite frankly, both coordinators and the staff, this is the best. To me, this is the best game they've coached.
Yeah, they completely outclassed and outcoached the Minnesota coaches, but who I think, as you're right about Ed Donatel, and I thought also Kevin O'Connell tried to be a little bit too cute with his offensive game plan instead of, doing some other things. So yeah, great feather in the cap of the Philadelphia Eagles. They did everything right. Spoke to someone who specifically regarding Hurts. His comment I thought was really interesting. He said, for a guy who's still improving and working hard on the processing part of the game, meaning he's got some obviously physical capabilities that are good, but processing is what they've worked on him with a lot. What are you seeing? What are you going to do with what you see? Even when he has been not at his best as a processor, going back to last year, he's never put the ball in harm's way very much. I mean, every once in a while, like Giants had 3 picks, we know, but for the most part, very careful with the football. And the person who I was talking to said that you're sort of ahead of the game when you're really not yet there as a processor, but you're not making bad decisions because they often go hand in hand, how you process versus the kind of throw you're going to make against a coverage and whether or not it's going to be a good throw or a risky one. He's never made an abundance of risky throws. And you saw against the Vikings just a really good concept of what he wanted to do based on what the defense was given. And you're right in that the way they structured their defense, some of the openings were right there for him and he took it. And so you don't have to necessarily go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But there were also times where he immediately noticed their umbrella, their back. I've got a guy who's going to leak out. They're going to rush 4. I'm going to leak my either my running back or tight end out, and he's going to pick up a lot of yards because everybody's backed up. And that's probably not the first read, but in his mind, he made it that way because he saw the coverage that way. So that's the processing that you're starting to see come along. Definitely his most complete game. And Adam, for the first time, I think you'd agree that you actually saw also him not just stay in the pocket. He stayed in the pocket more so, even as it was getting pinched around him. But that enabled him to make some pretty good downfield throws. The feet were set, even against deep coverages, like the one to Quez Watkins, the one to AJ Brown right side, and of course the 2 that he threw to Goddard. One was dropped, but it was a great throw. And then the other later was against a very deep coverage, a very umbrella coverage, but he was able to fire it in between the linebacker and the safety for about a 24-yard gain. I think it was either right before the half or right. I can't remember right now. But so you saw a variety of throws from this man. It was fantastic quarterbacking.
Yeah, he got to 2 a lot. Like if he didn't like 1, he did see 2 sometimes. He was able to get that done. Super accurate. Oh, on the mechanics. So here's what he explained to me. He rolled his shoulder very well, got his feet set, followed through, finished. If you're watching us on YouTube, he finished well. His arm slot was good. Now, you see when it's not good, the ball, because he's an over the top throw, the ball takes a nosedive.
Yeah.
And that's why a couple times in each game, the ball will be down near the player's feet. And they have to adjust. You saw in week 1, an unbelievable catch AJ Brown had when the ball was way too low and he took it off the turf. But no, this is his best game as a professional. The Goddard throw in the first half, that Goddard's technically a drop and it got in his hands, but it was through 2 defenders. It's about as good as a throw as you're going to make. It was an incredible throw. His accuracy is way up. He's getting cleaner looks. And here's the thing we need to understand. This is his second full year in the system, second full year as a starter. The jump that he's making, see, it really started as he was explaining to us in OTAs. The timing was better. Timing is not anticipation. It's more often anticipation is what Tom Brady and Peyton Manning did. I know he's going to be here. I'm going to trust him that he's going to be here, and I'm going to throw it in the quarter through his route.
Right.
Timing is a little bit further in the route. I see him break it open. I'm going to have him reach up and go get it. We saw this 2 years ago in the Arizona game, the Denver game, when he threw the bomb to Smith, beating Patrick Surtain in the right corner of the end zone, which is an unbelievable throw.
Right.
He's making a really a big jump. I know it's only 2 games, so we go game by game here, but you have to be really confident for your Eagles that he could handle a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving him more volume. He threw the ball 32 times in the first game, 31 in this one. They had the ball 41 plays in the first half, which is a monster amount. Second half, they didn't have the ball much, and that contributed to them not scoring. I'm not making a big deal out of it. Sometimes you see a team not score in the second half, you get worried, but I never felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt they left some points because of the blocked field goal.
Sure.
The penalties, my gosh.
Bad penalties.
How many times could they shoot themselves in the foot? Got her pushed off. Offensive pass interference was the correct call.
Right.
Mailata horsepower, the guy got on his pads and pulled him.
Yeah, the 3 illegals downfield.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that was terrible. 3 illegal man downfield. You can't. I could not imagine being a coach because they're moving the ball almost at will. Everything they wanted, they got in that game. Great job of game planning.
Mm-hmm.
Came on Ed Donatel, but hey, it is what it is. And it just didn't feel to you like it was like 40-0.
I tell you, it just felt like to me from a coaching standpoint and an execution standpoint that the Eagles were sort of 2 steps ahead of the Vikings in everything that they wanted to do compared to what the Vikings wanted them to do. And so that sort of folds into the sequencing and play calling topic that we talked about that a lot last year about how the Eagles offense at times just had no flow. Like it didn't seem like they were running a play now to set up a play later, which is what some of the great play callers do. You're even willing to take only a few, a 4 or 5 yard gain on a certain play here. So you can like that slant, so you can set up that sluggo later and go deep for 20 yards. We didn't see that well last year, at least if not from a play calling, not from an execution standpoint, but there were several times in the game where you noticed that the play calling was just so on par and meant to set up the next play and the play after. And I go back to when they had the ball back, they got the ball about 5 minutes left in the half and they were deep in their own territory. And, clearly they sensed that the Vikings felt that you're going to try to, put the ball in the air here, only 5 minutes left and get more points. And they came out in a spread formation, but they actually ran. They called a QB designed run to the left side. And I know it was a design run because on tape, you could see the receivers are blocking the whole way. It's not an RPO. It was spread and the Vikings were backed up expecting the run. So that gave Jalen a lot of time to run. And then on the same drive, I don't know what Ed Donatel was thinking, but he used an outside linebacker in sort of a man coverage, or at least his own coverage, but that's the closest guy to Devontae Smith in the slot. An outside linebacker on Devontae Smith, 2 straight plays. And obviously Jalen did a great job of recognizing it. And he probably made up in his mind, I'm throwing it to Devontae Smith easily.
Yeah, which you should do.
So then they worked the ball to midfield. Then came what I thought was a great sequencing. They started to run the ball. Remember, Vikings are thinking they're trying to get the ball in the air, pass, time's running out. They run the ball 3 times. First time they get a big gain. Second time, -1. So you think -1, they're probably not going to try that again. Yep. But then they come right back with the same run, different ball carrier, and get 15 up the middle. And what does that do after 3 straight runs up the middle? Then they call the RPO where Dallas Goedert wraps from left to right. He thought he might get the ball. Then he was mad at Harrison Smith for holding him. Then he realized that the quarterback was keeping it. So he's like, screw it. I'm going to go block Harrison Smith now. And it becomes a 26-yard touchdown. That entire series, Adam, was like the Eagles playing chess and Ed Donatel and the Vikings playing checkers.
Seriously. And by the way, Hurts' first touchdown. Actually, both rushing touchdowns were great. I forgot how strong he is, how powerfully built he is for a guy 6'1".
Yeah.
The deadlift is, whatever it is, 600 pounds. Pretty amazing. He was on display. This was an amazing football game. His arm it's definitely gotten better. It's not, he doesn't have a wow you arm, but it's plenty good enough. The Eagles always felt that way, despite all the criticism they can't make the downfield throw. We pointed out last year, if you saw the bomb to Quest Watkins against the Niners in week 2, though he didn't play great in that game, didn't play well at all, quite frankly, against the Niners, but he made a great throw downfield. He got his whole body into it, and he rolled his shoulder, and he got everything he could, and he's improved so greatly as a passer. It's literally night and day. He really is. He's got it going on right now. I'm just interested to see, because the other part about this is he's really doing a great job. Mm-hmm. Cosell pointed out last year he would drop his eyes too much. not really doing that anymore, I was told. So
Definitely
he's
kept his eye on the field.
maintaining his downfield focus much better.
Mhm.
He's close to where you like him to be with that. You wonder what's Jack Del Rio. Their defense has been terrible so far through 2 games. My goodness gracious, they're
Again.
not. Goff crushed them.
Mhm.
I'm very curious what they're going to have for Hurts this week.
Yeah, same here. By the way, that first touchdown that you brought up was that's just Jalen Hurts being better than you. Not you, but like
That move he
because
made.
the Vikings had a good defense on for that. It was an RPO. He fakes the handoff, and the edge defender is Hunter. He's good. He was not fooled. He didn't get crashed all the way in. He came out. Jalen put a juke on the first person coming at him, and then he just ran right through Hunter into the end zone. And it's like the Vikings are like, well, we called the right D. We just couldn't
Yeah,
stop the guy. And credit to him.
yeah, that's what Dan Campbell said on the Monday after his Monday press conference last week.
Right.
He's like, he just outran us. What can you
Right.
do? And here, he out juked us, he outpowered us. I mean, it was pretty amazing. He was so accurate. It wasn't just the deposit number; it was actually where the throws were, right on them. Um, he was decisive. The play calling was terrific. It's kind of like, what does he do for an encore? Which just play consistently great football. It doesn't have to be that at
Mhm.
that level. That was pretty much elite.
Mhm.
So that was the quarterback position. Not much else to say. I mean, what else? The tape was phenomenal. It wasn't just a TV copy. The tape was really good. The mechanics are really improved. It's another part we really haven't talked about much,
Mhm.
but I'm impressed because I remember being with the Eagles and Browns for those 2 days of training camp in Berea. There was there were some problems. Some of he just wasn't comfortable in some of those drills.
Mhm.
Uh, but man, now everything counts, and you can actually hit a quarterback.
Mhm.
He looks great. I mean, he really does, and I'm just liking the way that they're calling the game. Well, Shane Steichen is. I guess I must have said he's surprised me as a play caller. Didn't know you and I did some homework on him with the Chargers, and we got mostly positive, got some negative on him there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
he's done a great job here.
Yeah, he has. I don't know what the adjective for us because we just don't know enough. I mean, I guess we're surprised, but it's not like I expected him to be bad, but I didn't know if he'd be great either. So I guess anything good is going to be like it's sort of like a pleasant surprise. But if he was terrible, I'd probably be a little surprised by that as well. One thing on the passing offense I want to bring up that really stood out to me is that it's the design of the Vikings defense is to keep things in front of you and limit big plays, sort of like what Jonathan Gannon does and did all last year. But there were there was a 2nd and 16, the play where Jalen did a really nice job of just staying in the pocket. It was pinching a little bit, but he stayed in and he hit Quez Watkins on the right side for
Oh,
18 yards. And what I really thought was interesting about that was despite the Vikings' best attempt to play 2 deep safeties and back their corners off, there was enough time for Watkins to run that straight line up. And then he put a move to the outside on Patrick Peterson, turned him to the outside, and then broke inside. And it was a really nice, that's part of that timing we're talking about where Jalen sees him about to break and throws it so that when he turns around, it's there. That was done 2 or 3 times, once by Quez or twice by Quez, once by AJ Brown. So even with the Vikings trying to protect their cornerbacks, the Eagles were able to take advantage of them just by protecting Jalen long enough to let the receivers get that separation at the top of the route.
so that one was in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the same play.
Yeah,
They flushed Hurts out instead of him running.
that's right.
He didn't. He rolled to his right,
Right.
stuck his foot in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Watkins turns Patrick Peterson inside out. It was a great throw. This is how he's growing as a quarterback. This is the guys who run. Josh Allen still goes through it. Obviously, much better than Hurts, but you get my point. The running quarterbacks, at some point, they got to let the game come to them and stop trying to force the run.
Mm-hmm.
And Hurts is taking just a big jump. I know it's only 2 games, but what we're told is this really started in OTAs, where last year failed way too much, failed in practice, was much better in his first year. But remember, he was learning a new offense. He had another one in his career. Now it's his second year, full year as a starter in this offense, and
Mm-hmm.
really seeing growth. You're seeing growth.
You are seeing growth. All right, real quick on the offensive line. First, we want to tell you about our friends, as we've been telling you. If you want the best CBD, the most all-natural, organic CBD, you go to freestonefarmscbd.com, use the promo code ITB, and you will get 20% off at checkout. That's 20% off at freestonefarmscbd.com for the most organic and the best CBD on the market. Remember, when you get those workout fuel or you want to go to bed better, you just got to go to freestonefarmscbd.com and make sure you use that ITB promo code for the discount. The offensive line, Adam, we saw the confusion with what the Lions were doing to them and getting them all out of sync. Now, again, they weren't challenged very much, but they did have some pretty good pass rushers. Hunter is a good pass rusher. Zadarius Smith's a good pass rusher. Wanham's a good pass rusher. And the Eagles absolutely did their job up front. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of teams going forward just play coverage and try to get a 4-man rush against the Eagles because they're just too good up front.
So I think what happened in the first game is the communication, being in Detroit, this is a shocking sellout.
Yep.
Ford Field. They didn't. It's the first game of the season. They just didn't handle it well overall.
Right.
It's kind of one of these, like, you feel good that you escaped with a win. This game, they gave us some pressures from Danielle Hunter, but the great thing is Hurts defeated it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
This is where having a guy who can move, who's mobile, it's really important in today's NFL, man, more than ever. And he just was able to defeat it. The thing in my notes I found interesting. One guy said, I just wrote it down. He said, well, he goes, it looks like a half moon when it's correct. You're watching me on YouTube. It's like this. They had so many plays where it was created, and they walled them off.
Absolutely.
They walled them. That's why Hurts had so much time during the game on certain plays where go, wow, this is like the way you create an offensive line block, like where they're all in sync and their timing. You can see some of it on the TV copy, but on the All 22 apparently looks pretty special.
Yeah.
The tight ends, by the way, blocked really well. We'll get into them for the most part. I mean, I guess Goddard talked after the game. He gave up a couple, but he's terrific. Stoll is turned out to be a very nice number 2 in terms of what they asked him to do. And the other thing we forgot to mention, we should mention, this is a heavy 11 personnel game. They went from being a 12 the first game to heavy 11, which means 3 receivers and mostly 1 tight end in this game. It was and listen, this is what we call it for the pregame. They should be heavy 11 because they got 2 corners that don't run well, right. And it's clear they agree with it because they went after this.
Yeah, and they must have felt they didn't need the extra blocking because I'm sure they assumed that there's no way the Vikings will come after them the way the Lions did. I don't know if anybody will come after them the way the Lions did. But not only that, I mean, they correctly assumed that Ed Donatel was not going to be, even throwing a whole lot of 5-man pressure. He did not throw even a whole lot of 5-man pressures at the Eagles. Occasionally, he brought a nickel corner or a linebacker. But, I mean, I don't consider that an adjustment, man. It's still 5 offensive linemen to block 5 guys. I mean, you got to get an extra guy at this quarterback to move him off his spot, or you have to have like Von Miller creating pressure on his own.
And the other thing, part of that, before we move to the defense, is we'll talk about tight ends in a sec. But I didn't see him doing anything like that. See what this type of defense that he's running, which is somewhat of the Vic Fangio defense. Vic would win with post snap drops, zone drops. Like he'll load the box up with 7 and then they drop. We saw this last year, though. The Eagles beat it somewhat in Denver. I don't know. This is like one of these games where you go, what were you thinking, man? It's just hard to believe. And Hurts and the coaches took advantage of it. They were terrific. And it's just one of these things. You took advantage of it. You're not going to get it. I hate to say easy. You're just never going to get what you want, predictable looks. They got less than predictable. It was not what they thought. No one thought this. It was hard to believe that experienced D coordinator is not going to cloud the coverage for him and make him hold the ball, which is what you want from if you're a D coordinator and help make the young quarterback hold it. Yeah. He didn't. He was decisive. They just defeated them badly.
No doubt about it. Funny. I wonder how many of our listeners were watching the game, saw Ed Donatel, on screen, saw the name and thought, hey, wait a minute. Isn't that the guy who was the defensive coordinator for the Packers in 2003, 19 years ago, when Donovan McNabb completed the famous 4th and 26 pass to Freddie Mitchell in the playoff game? I wonder how many people were like, I remember that Ed Donatel. I mean, that's a long time this guy has been in the league.
Crazy. And now Mike Turgovac, I think, was his D-line coach before he went to Carolina. Right. Something like that. But, yeah, that was I was just kind of stunned. Like I like the Eagles to win. I was telling Mike Gill on Tuesday on his show, I was like, I didn't have the gazintas to go with it, but I wanted to say, man, I have a feeling Eagles might blow them out. It's just the crowd. Kevin O'Connell's first game coaching on the road, outdoors. It's not indoors. Aaron Rodgers didn't have his tackles, then lost John Runyon Jr. to the game to a concussion, and they won because they couldn't block.
Right.
So they had a major advantage. Where here, the Eagles just the coaching, the players, whatever their game plan was worked. The execution, the other part about it worked, and then just talk about the tight ends quickly before we get to defense. Dallas Goedert is amazing football player. Like his athleticism for a guy as big as he is we've always known that.
Yeah.
He's leading the NFL right now in average per catch at 17.8. Hasn't scored yet. He's come close twice to scoring, but
very close twice. Yep.
I'm not going to say he's the best all around tight end. Obviously, Kelsey, although he blocked better than Kelsey. But this guy's a top 5 tight end talent. And you're starting to see it because he led the NFL last year in run after the catch at tight end, but he's taking this game to another level. He doesn't have to deal with Ertz anymore.
Right.
Taking balls away from him. So
did I not say?
I'm sorry.
Did I not say this? That by this year, at some point, we will be talking about Dallas Goedert, the same company as we do with Darren Waller or George Kittle or Travis Kelsey. He may not be the best, but he's going to get himself in that company. And honestly, I think that there's even more room for him in the offense. But yeah, he's been so close to that end zone.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to see him at the X position. Like heck, Ertz, we've seen him play the X position. Waller does a lot because he can do it, and it just opens stuff up. But I got to give the coaches credit. They've really done a very good job the first 2 games. I mean, it's for those people who said, oh, the Eagles were flat against the truth. They weren't flat. It's just you're not going to be able to get all your timing down without playing in the preseason.
Right.
The key players, and because they don't practice like when you and I first started covering the league, they would practice more. So Bill Polian's right. He said it takes 3 weeks. Bill was talking about that. On the 33rd team. Your Joe Banner, Mike Tannenbaum's website, he says he thinks it takes about 3 weeks. That's why the defense are ahead of the offenses, though I would tell you the Eagles offense is pretty much ahead of the defense so far.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Still a very good defensive showing by the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll get to that in a second. First, we want to tell you to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com. And on Twitter is at PHL Sports Nation. We'll pause real quick for a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you hop out there to Westchester, PA, where Sky Motor Cars is, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get the best deal. You can also visit them at skymotorcars.com. All right. Defense. I think this, to me, is where the fans were like, whoa, like we talk about surprises, right? What we expected from Shane Steichen or Jalen Hurts, but this guy was under the gun, man. John Gannon. I mean, people were ready to fire him after a win.
One dude said on Twitter, I didn't say anything. I laughed because this reminded me of when Jim Washburn got fired when the plane landed. Yeah, and he canned him in the parking lot, if I recall correctly. I believe but right. A fan said they should have fired him in Detroit and not let him fly home. I'm like, oh my god, people, what
tough crowd.
I did laugh though, exactly. Tough crowd.
So go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I would say what. So to me, he did 2 things that were really significant in this game. One is that he again situationally blitzed. It's not like he threw 30 blitzes at him, but he threw a variety of pressure schemes at the right time. And 2, he allowed his corners, not every snap, but enough, especially the significant downs. He allowed his corners to challenge the receivers at the line of scrimmage. I think that to me was the biggest and best adjustment. The blitzes are great too, but Kirk Cousins has seen a million blitzes.
Yeah.
The challenging of the corners when you have guys like Slay and Maddox and Bradbury who can challenge and be strong, I thought was a big step forward.
Not only is it Gannon's best game as an Eagles defense coordinator, this is kind of what when the Eagles hired him, well, Sirianni technically hired him, but when the Eagles thought based on what their information, they thought Gannon was like the smart guy and innovative and all this stuff. And let's call it like it is. We didn't see it last year. If you want to blame the personnel they had, that's fine. But facts are facts. It's all factual. He didn't do a very good job last year. But we talked to a source in the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't say he's close again, but he knows him, a league source, and said, "Oh, I'm telling you, it was Philly. He's going to be more aggressive this year because he's got better talent. You'll see him disguise more, which has happened first 2 weeks of disguising more. But the double A gap blitzes, and I'm always, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at the numbers during the game, and when I'm seeing stuff, I'm like 57. Oh, TJ Edwards is a blitzer here. Holy bleep! Whoa.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Someone explained to me on Tuesday. He's like, dude, he trusts these guys now because he's got players who are pretty talented, and he's gotten to know them, and he's not asking them to do things they can't do. And the biggest surprise to me of this football team on defense has got to be TJ Edwards. I am shocked and not only that, as you pointed out to me, he was also in dime. Like, who could have believed that a year ago? No way I would have believed it. This guy's been the biggest improvement on defense. I don't think there's any question about it.
I'm so happy to say how wrong we were about what his role would be this year, especially when they grabbed Nakobe Dean in the third round. That seemed like the depths are. You got Kazir White, who can cover. Sure. You got Nakobe Dean, who's supposed to be a great all-around linebacker. I kept saying, you know what, TJ Edwards is going to be a really nice base linebacker against the run on 3rd and 1, goal line 4th. Well, no, he's their best linebacker right now. He's their best. It may not be next year. Maybe it'll be Nakobe Dean. I don't know, but he's their best. And he's like a playmaker now. 2 passes batted down. They're throwing on him in man, and he's doing a good job. He's getting sticky. This is a guy who never will test great to make you think he can play that way, but his play speed is there. He's like a baseball pitcher who throws like a really good changeup, so that when he throws a fastball at 93, it looks like it's 98. Looks can be deceiving. The testing can be deceiving. He's a smart player, and he's a tough player, and that compensates for whatever measurables he may not have compared to like a Fred Warner or whatever. But it's working right now.
It has been an amazing story. This cannot be talked about enough. It's one of the most unlikely stories. If you know how the other teams felt about TJ Edwards, he was an afterthought. Might be a special team player, backup Mike.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's gotten so much better in coverage. I know he's very smart and instinctive, but this is almost hard to believe. And it's kind of a good thing to happen in that with Dean. Listen, the only way Dean's not getting on the field is because of Edwards and his progression. That's actually a good thing. Now, is the reality that Dean will probably take his job someday? Most likely, but it's not a lock anymore.
No. We'll
just see. And they're going to have to figure out a way to get him. And by the way, Dean is a superior blitzer. But my gosh, Edwards he was so downhill, he looked like a running back.
He trucked Dalvin Cook in pass protection on that first blitz, man. I think it was
I know. He was great. We didn't really talk about Sanders. Sanders was terrific. He was very downhill in this game. But
he was.
It was pretty amazing. And so the notes that we got from our sources. So clearly trusts his DBs. He's not worried about the back end anymore. Continually called blitzes when least expected, doing things that Philly did not do last season. Not concerned about the potential failure on the back end, which is, by the way, the issue last year. Trust is there. Didn't see this last year. Also, mirror coverage was good when they used it.
Well said. Well said. If we shift to the front line, I think the biggest thing is there weren't that many runs, and I question that from Kevin O'Connell. But when they did run in the first quarter, you did not see combo blocks driving Fletcher Cox 10 yards away from the ball. You did not see tight ends putting wham blocks on Javon Hargrave that just completely knock him out like you saw against the Lions. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if those two just did not seize the moment in the season opener against the Lions. Maybe they took the Lions lightly. I can't tell you, but they certainly played more with effort and intensity. And like we said, you can call it alignment or whatever, but you got to beat the guy in front of you. And they did not get beaten by the guy in front of them the way they did last week.
No, in fact, our notes here, great energy from Cox. He was engaged in this game. He clearly was motivated because the tape showed this. Hargrave rebounded. He blew some run plays up. Cox was just the numbers don't show. The tape does. It was like night and day from the Detroit game where he got moved off the ball, which is almost hard to believe, but the tape shows it. They both were, as we noted last Wednesday morning, both Cox and Hargrave got moved off the ball way too much. Not in this game. They were terrific. And they used Sweat as a D tackle.
Yeah, unconventional use of Josh Sweat, by the way, but he answered the call in that position. You know, I thought he did a nice job.
He did. He, as a force defender, he did a great job pushing stuff inside. That's why they did such. That's why I'm guessing O'Connell saw the reality that they couldn't block these guys. You know, they're really young on the offensive line. One of the youngest offensive lines in the NFL. They're talented, but this group has not played together very long, and it showed. And now I'll give them credit. They only had one illegal man down the field. They didn't have any plays against, which was sort of surprising.
Right.
But they didn't do a very good job. The Eagles dominated. Their D line dominated. And now the one thing I would tell you though is that Gannon's going to have to blitz because they're not in terms of getting pressure without blitzing. It's still a problem. I don't know if I just don't think they're good enough there. In fact, that's where in the draft next year they're going to have to address it.
Yep.
To me, they got to get 2 pass rushers for next year's draft.
I think the only person that I felt generated pressure on a rush without being schemed that way, right, consistently, was Josh Sweat. I thought he did a good job of collapsing his side when he rushed, but you know, and there were a couple of times Hassan Reddick was Hassan Reddick, but you know, on the play where Kirk Cousins made a beautiful pass to Irv Smith that Irv Smith just dropped.
What a throw.
Sweat, I swear I froze the frame on it, Adam. Sweat had like a 45-degree bend angle on Christian Darris on the left tackle and was actually hitting Cousins as Cousins made that throw. That actually made the throw that much more impressive. I think I said this on our show the other night on the Fanatic. The 2 best throws of the game were dropped. That one by Cousins to Irv Smith, and the one that Dallas Goedert couldn't handle from Jalen Hurts. But I agree with you. I think through 2 games we're seeing that, and we're not used to this from an Eagles front, that they have to blitz to generate pressure, and maybe that'll change. You know, maybe we saw that Brandon Graham was explosive in camp, so maybe it'll just sort of come back to him. They're only using him as a rotational player at the moment. But you know, guys like Hargrave, Cox, we haven't seen that interior burst that we saw last year. And you're still waiting to see on the, obviously Derek Barnett's injured now for the year, and we haven't seen an exterior burst yet from Brandon Graham. So it's just something to watch going forward. I don't think Jonathan Gannon wants it that way, where he has to blitz to generate.
Of course.
Pressure. Yeah.
Sure. No, because the Fangio scheme is built on zone drops.
Right.
Making the quarterback hold on and hoping your front 4 gets there. Yeah. That's no. I get it that these guys don't coach it exactly because Vic's a genius. They can't have access to his brain. They can ask him questions, but we know Gannon's obviously close to Fangio. But the fact of the matter is, no one will call it like it's like with Bill Walsh. All the Walsh disciples don't call it like he did because he's the one who created the offense. So they're not going to call it exactly the same. But I will tell you what, Gannon did a phenomenal job. This should be the norm, not the This should be the expectation, not the aberration. This should be what you get. You should be able to win most weeks. And by the way, that Washington, we'll talk more. We'll have more film stuff on Friday and the preview. But I'm going to give you a little hint here. Washington's really bad on the offensive line. Detroit did the same thing they did the Eagles. They got them. Now, for half they did, and then they protected Wentz, and Wentz went off after that. Wentz really got it going on.
Yep.
But I got to tell you, Washington does not have a very good offensive line. Their center's gone for a bit, Roulier. I'm so curious about what Gannon does here because I don't want to hear any excuses here. You need to bring it. He needs to be a better, consistent play caller. He called a great game. Let's see him do it back to back.
Washington has problems on the offensive line. Why does that make me say wash, rinse, repeat? Wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, it's when don't they have trouble on the offensive line? I know it's gotten better a little bit last year. They did a nice job with Leno there, but I mean, every year they got injuries. It used to be Scherf. They even had injuries at center last few years, and now it's Roulier again. And
four guys
not
were
good.
down.
Not
they
good
were down
for
to their
them.
4-string center when the Eagles played him, I think, the second time.
Yeah, they were. That's right.
It was crazy. So then linebackers, so consistent, so few mental errors. They ran to space. Here's why. This did not happen in the first game. The D line did not clean off for the linebackers. In this game, they did. That's why they were so good against the run, because the synchronicity between the D line and the linebackers was right there. That they filled well. Kaiser White has been so good. Wow, what a one! This is one of the few 1-year deals that seems like it's going to work out, because it started in May at their first post draft OTA. He's not slowed down. He's been terrific. What a signing! He's a leader already, from what we're told.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, he's very vocal. He's been a great steward. What's funny is Brandon Staley didn't want him because he thought he was too small. So, the league source told us.
Oh, okay.
Well, he's put on weight. I don't know what exactly. I think he's somewhere between 235 and 240.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's not a tall guy, but he's been great. And we said this a couple months ago, folks. You're not going to be embarrassed by this group. You actually be proud of them for the first time since probably 2017.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, but it certainly seems like we're
pretty good.
That way.
Good group.
It's gonna be good. And of course, on the back end, because the Vikings sort of got away from the run early, they didn't have to worry about Chauncey Gardner being up in the box a little bit. And of course, like we said, you saw Darius Slay challenging the receivers, challenging Justin Jefferson. The only time Justin Jefferson to me did damage was when they lined him up in the slot and got him up against Maddox or in his zone. I mean, man to man, Slade did his thing, and he probably could have had 4 interceptions if things bounced a little differently.
It's funny. I was laughing when he jumped up he should have been an interception. Like, so in tennis, they teach you, especially guys like me or new to the things, like not to jump when you hit the ball when you want to power forehand. You still shouldn't jump up unless you're a pro.
Right.
Well, Slay has to know better. Like, there's no reason to jump. It's a clear pick. And then 2 plays later gets the pick. I'm like, it's just when you got it going on, his energy, and apparently he's a big time leader for them. That's why he's a captain. He's great with the younger guys. And I know Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got criticized for his first game. Look, folks, understand he was with the team a week and a half.
Yeah. Plus, he's not really played that position. I mean, he's played safety, components of safety, but he's a nickel corner. Yeah.
He was much better in this game. We'll have more notes on him on Friday.
Right.
The thing that one of the people we talked to said that this guy's team is coming up here couple weeks. He said, man, he goes, I went back to Philly tape last year. He goes, it's unbelievable how much faster they are on the back end.
Yeah.
He goes, he can't wait to see, because he's got to do advance on the other teams that they're doing. I think they're playing. I have to check the schedule, but anyway, they're playing the Eagles in October. And advanced guys usually are 4 or 5 weeks ahead. And he goes, oh my goodness gracious. He goes, it's so ridiculous how much faster they are, because they were so bad on the back end last year.
Oh, sure.
And they're going to need that
just by process of subtraction of Anthony Harris and Steve Nelson, and then of course the addition of Marcus Epps and Chauncey Gardner and James Bradbury. Yeah, you got more guys in run.
Speed.
Yeah,
you got 3 guys that are over 200 pounds. I think Chauncey Gardner's 6'1" maybe.
Yeah.
Max is only 5 now, but he can run. Right. Now this is an excellent group. And by the way, I know he's not playing a ton on defense, but McPherson's getting more comfortable. Obviously been great on special teams again, but he's going to help them. They feel a little bit better about him. So it's so far so good. I think Gannon learned from the game against Detroit. Stop relaxing the second half.
Yep.
And to go with 2 safety blitzes in the red zone with cover 0 with no safety. I was like, wow, this is not Jonathan Gannon we've seen here. I guess based on the person we spoke to, who knows Gannon, he goes, I'm telling you, he's going to be more aggressive. You're going to be surprised. And the guy didn't say, like, I don't think he's talking on a weekly basis, but he did say that he's expecting, based on his conversations with Gannon in the offseason, that this is going to be coming here. So we'll see. It's only 1 game, and trust is earned over a period of time, but this is pretty darn good.
No doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Reminder, tonight, Wednesday night, 9:00, for our Patreon subscribers, we will have our first Ask ITB show involving all of our subscribers who want to be in on the Zoom channel and ask us questions. It'll be a great time. You can still get in by subscribing inside the patreon.com/inside the birds. Want to thank all the people who are listening. Want to thank, of course, our producer, Tyler Strasser, for doing such a great job. And as always, we thank you, the listener, for flying with us inside the birds.